Hi, everyone. So I'm really excited to be able to meet with John today to discuss living with schizoaffective disorder. John, would you be willing to just give a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is John. On YouTube, I go as Johnny Judoka. The reason why I go by Johnny Judoka is because my first name is John and I do judo and jujitsu. So that's sort of the reason why I chose that moniker. I live with schizoaffective, bipolar type, and OCD. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy watching movies. I love music. I love art. I love art history. Art is sort of one of the main things that got me out of helped me be able to express myself in regards to just the struggles I went through with schizoaffective and with OCD. And so it's been a crucial part of my experience as a human being and being able to share that with people online, in my personal life, and just with those around me.
Thank you for the introduction. I just have to say again, I've been really looking forward to this interview and hearing more about your experience. So the second question I had is just kind of a general question of what your experience with schizoaffective disorder has been like.
Oh, I sort of dread this question, to be honest. It's been really bad. It's been really, really bad. The main problem is I've gone through several misdiagnoses with my mental illness, and it's been really hard to find care that is appropriate for my condition. And because my manic episodes, my psychoses, they range very aggressively, and I've had to get hospitalized in as few as intervals as few as within days of each other, like readmits and relapses and stuff like that. So it's been very unpleasant because along with the schizoaffective, I have OCD, so I obsess about intrusive thoughts all the time, and it's been very difficult for me to function, not being able to work, not being able to have a job, not able to right now have a stable relationship, and that's been really difficult for me to sort of function as a member of society. And so understanding what that means for me as an individual that struggles with all these illnesses, how can I find myself to be an individual who has meaning, who has purpose, even though I have these struggles. So it's been very, very difficult, but I think I'm on the brighter side of things. I think right now I'm at the point where when it comes for me to deal with my illness, I'm a lot more equipped with therapy and coping skills and tools. Medication is a huge help. I'm on medications that work. We have the right diagnosis. So it's a lot better, but it has been very difficult, if I'm to be completely honest.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering. And I'm sorry that that's a stressful question. I can imagine how difficult it must be to be dealing with all of that and then also have misdiagnoses and along the way. One of the questions I had kind of next on the list is maybe a very specific one, but I was just wondering, kind of based on one of your previous videos I'd seen, if you could talk a little bit about how having these illnesses has affected your sleep and any difficulty with that.
Yeah, I still struggle with this to this day. Sleep, for those hustlers out there, is not for the weak. It's not for those who are not good at productivity. Sleep is for human beings. Sleep is for healthy human beings. For those who boast that sleep is just a weakness leaving the body, they're wrong, and they are taking advantage of something that is necessary for human function and survival. If you don't sleep, you can have psychosis, and it's not fun. You can hallucinate. A lot of things can happen, and that's why it's so sad to see how the education system, the work system, especially in America, puts sleep on the back burner. So in my personal experience, I've had instances where I've been awake for several days, up to a week. I've had no sleep. because of medication issues or something was wrong or I had a manic episode. And so I had to get to the point where I had to be more regimented with my sleep. My sleep medications make me sleep too much. And I don't like how that makes me not active and like productive in my day. But I would rather have that than not be able to sleep and not be able to function and be suicidal and hurt someone or myself.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your answer so much, and especially your point about how I think our society does put this emphasis on not sleeping as being a positive thing or a sign of productivity, when in reality it can be so unhealthy and so painful to be
Yeah,
unable.
I think it's really important that people understand that it's not about being the most productive, it's about
Mm,
being happy and healthy. And
yeah.
those two dichotomies are drastically different. And I think that when people understand that you need sleep and sleeping efficiently, like not in the sense of like not sleeping at all just to make that paper due or make that project done or whatever, but being able to get things done in a way where sleep is for priority can help you be more productive. Like it's natural and it's proven that if you manage your sleep better, you'll be more productive. It's simple as that. And it's priorities. What is your priority in your life? And then maybe making things more efficient. And even if things are inefficient, just accepting that, like, well, you still need to take care of yourself. You
Mm,
still need to take care of your body because sleep affects your diet, it affects your metabolism, it affects everything, it affects your mental state, emotional state, affects your relationship with other people. So for me, sleep is one, especially as someone who deals with manic episodes, I need to be on top of my sleep or else I'm not going to be in a good place mentally or physically.
yeah. So yeah, I know you mentioned earlier, kind of having those prolonged periods of not sleeping and also having inpatient care kind of sometimes in very close kind of time periods. I was just wondering if you'd be willing to share a little bit about what your experience with inpatient hospitalization has been like.
So I've been hospitalized over about 100 times, and the reason why I've been hospitalized so much is two reasons. First of all, misdiagnoses. Because I started going when I was around 15. I'm 28 now. So over 12, 13 years of hospitalization. So that's a long time to be misdiagnosed. I only got diagnosed with the correct schizoaffective and OCD when I was 25, 26, 27. And that only then was I being starting to be treated correctly for the medication. And so my experiences at inpatient hospitals was a mixture of things. Some of them were great. Some of them were genuinely good hospitals. Some of them were awful. The closer you get into a city, like in the urban areas of a city, the worse the care gets because there's not much infrastructure to take care of the patients. Also, the healthcare system to treat patients on that level is a public health system. So there's not as much infrastructure. There's not much money to put into it. When we have private insurance, you have these private hospitals. They have better hospitals, better care, and then that's not to include like there's also no. I live in Texas, and there's no residential facilities in Texas that I'm aware of that takes people for mental health only. A lot of it's mainly only chemical codependency, and so if you have Medicaid, Medicare in the state of Texas, and you want to go to a state hospital, you have to pay out of pocket to go to a facility that is nicer or better or whatever the case may be, because people in Texas deserve care that is more regionalized, more specialized care. But if they don't have that health care, then they're sort of out of luck. So another aspect is the staff. So there's three elements to the staffing in a psychiatric hospital. There is the nursing staff, the administrative staff, therapeutic staff. Well, I guess there's one more, and then the nursing. Yeah, so nursing staff. So you have the techs and the nurses, You have the doctors, you have the administrative staff, and you have the therapists. And so all work together as part of a treatment team to help you when you go in a hospital to get better by the time you leave. In most cases, you're there for maybe 7 to 10 days. That's not a long time in regards to the long-term term aspect of like, okay, well, this is going to be the rest of my life. No, it's not. You're not in jail. We're going to talk about that later. So one thing to note is that with these kinds of conversations, I found that some parts of the treatment staff that I've dealt with are very condescending towards patients. Seems to be a power struggle in regards to like how when patients are asserting their advocacy, that doctors and therapists and nurses will look down upon patients because they're advocating for their rights. They're advocating for things that they need and they want and they absolutely deserve, but they don't get that respect. I went through a lot of that abuse, and we'll talk about that later as well. I went through a lot of that abuse from psychiatric staff, not caring about my opinions, about what I needed, about just asserting that their opinion is their opinion and that is right because they had the clinical experience, because they went to school for it, because they did this. Whenever I, as a patient, I have needs myself. And then the overall problem is just the infrastructure of hospitals in general. It's not consistent across the board. Staff will treat patients differently based on different whims. That's not necessarily a bad thing because let's say you have a nurse that's been working there for 25 years and knows everything in and out of the hospital. They can be a little bit lenient about certain things and they want to do that. But let's say you have a nurse that's working day 5 or day 1, and so she's very regimented. And so let's say a patient is wanting medication that needs a little bit of fudging to get around. So the first nurse will be, oh, okay, yeah, that's no big problem. But the second nurse will be, no, we can't do that. And so the patient is having a conflict of, hey, this happened, but this didn't happen. That's inconsistent. I'm not getting the care I need. And so there needs to be more of a conversation about like a continual, like a continuity of like how patients are taken care of. At what point can there be flexibility? At what point there can be not? Because at the end of the day, it's a patient's life. You're trying to take care of the patients from each other, from themselves, and from the staff to protect everyone involved in that scenario. So I think in my experience, it hasn't been awful in regards to like I think one of the things I struggled with was I have a family member who struggles with understanding mental health hospitals. And I think that when I was on the hospital all these years, that I was just in the hospital. I was like, sit in the bed, or lay down in the bed and just, they give me meds and that's all I did, watch TV, whatever. But you don't understand that you meet people. It's a different environment. You actually interact with patients, you interact with people that go through diverse experiences than you, who go through lots of different things. And it's really interesting to see how their experiences can help you make your life better. You learn to be grateful. You learn to be accepting of different things. I had an instance where I had a friend from high school that I didn't see until I saw him in an outpatient clinic. And he turned out to be transgender. And so he identified to be she. And I did not know that. I asked her how long this had been going on. And this was before transgender rights was really a big thing, especially in Texas. And she said it was before middle school. And I was like, wow, to suffer that long. And so to be able to have a place where you can share that and to be able to communicate what you need and whatnot, it's very cool. But it's not a perfect place, and there needs to be a lot of things done to change that so that it can be safe and equal for all, to make it a just system for everyone who is part of that.
It's neat that you were able to connect with your classmate, and it sounds like there are some chances for the connection and maybe in a very authentic way as well. But as you were mentioning, it sounds like there's also a lot of things that need to be changed to increase kind of predictability and structure and just quality of care for the patients. So one of the next questions I had is, so I'll try this. Uh, Hi everyone, I'm back for part two of the interview. There's been some internet issues. So I'm just going to restart by asking the question of what changes would you like to see in the mental health system and also the criminal justice system so that people with mental illnesses are treated better?
Yeah, so basically there needs to be 4 stages. Yeah, that's much better. There needs to be 4 stages of change in a structure of with mental health. We have the awareness going on, we have people talking about it, we have men talking about it, we have people of LGBTQ talking about it, we have people of different ethnic descent talking about it, we have kids talking about it, which is awesome. Now we have to advocate for change. We have to advocate for things that are wrong in the mental health system, bring to light the things about suicide, about, we have all these programs advocating for, the awareness of all these things. And then we have to change legislation. You have to advocate to our legislators that, like, hey, this needs to change about our mental health system, not just like these are ideas, but like these are like the research. This is the research behind why this works and why this needs to help and the benefit because mental health patients are seen as a pariah in society, and they're seen as a weak part of society. And as someone who's not neurodivergent, I'm learning more about how we're not weak. We're not pathetic. We're not losers. We're people who are empowered. And we just do things differently. That's why we're neurodivergent, and that we can contribute to a society if society allows us to participate in it. And then the last thing is infrastructure. What are the changes we're going to be doing? How are we going to be advocating for people who are homeless, giving them healthcare so they can have more access to mental health care so they don't have to go to drugs and alcohol? How are we going to advocate for people who are in the LGBTQ community who need more resources if they're having a mental health crisis? How are we going to communicate to people of different ethnic descent? How are we going to communicate with them with the American ideologies of like how mental health should be treated? So I think a lot of it has to do with that step process. Okay, so we're talking about it, we have to advocate for it, we have to change it, and then we have to actually build something with all that said knowledge, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great. Yeah, great ideas. Thank you very much. My next question is, I guess, a little bit related to that. And the next question is what your experience has been like having schizoaffective disorder and growing up in the Asian family, and how do you think the mental health care system can be made more culturally sensitive?
Oh, okay. Oh, so I forgot to answer your other question about the criminal justice system. So I'll answer that first, and then I'll answer the Asian family dynamic question. The very simple thing. It's not simple at all, actually. Is we need to train police officers how to identify those situations. That's simple enough. We need law enforcement to learn, and that's like millions of dollars of infrastructure, training, teaching. Like we need to teach them how to identify these things in that stressful environment, because obviously if they see someone assaulting someone, they're obviously going to think they're just being a person who is doing a bad thing. But a lot of these people who are assaulting and doing crimes and stuff may not actually be criminals. They just might be psychotic. And so they need to have that training to be aware of like, hey, this is what a psychotic person is doing, and they're not actually, we need to detain them. We need to make sure they're safe, but we don't need to actually kill them. We don't need to actually imprison them. We don't actually need to do all these things. So first one is that. And second of all is we need to, whenever there's an investigation done on these cases after the fact, after the person is arrested or detained, there needs to be better education done on the judge's part, on the actual defense attorney, or whatever the case may be, in regards to like how do we treat someone on trial someone who has a mental illness but also is committing a crime. Like for example, I'll be very transparent. I'm on, and I've talked about this in my videos. I have 2 felonies for assaulting 2 nurses, which is classified as a state felony. Uh, uh, Assault on the public servant. So what that means is that I have these charges, and I don't look like a person would typically have a felony, but I have 2. And the only reason why I didn't go to prison was because of the consideration to my mental health and what the situation was. But there needs to be, but the infrastructure in that hospital was so poor, they couldn't even prevent that from happening. So that's something that needs to be changed. That's why that conversation about infrastructure, sure, we can talk about it. We can talk about it in our YouTube videos. We can talk about it in our friend groups. We can talk about it. But if it doesn't change in an infrastructure level, there's no point. To answer your question about family dynamics, the first thing is we need to break the ethnic family gap between clinician and family. We need to understand that there is a difference of opinion in Asian American families and Asian families. Those are 2 different dynamics when it comes to people talking about mental health to a psychiatrist. Asian families tend to be very closeted, very quiet, hiding the actual issue at hand when it comes to mental health. And so it's very important that when it comes to these issues, that people understand that, oh, this is not just something that can be just be ignored. It needs to be something that needs to be addressed. So when psychiatrists, therapists are the first mainline defense in regards to like communicating with a patient's family about how a patient is doing, how they're doing in regards to their mental health care. There needs to be interpreter services. There needs to be translators. There needs to be a more readily available. I've been in hospitals where they had that, but that needs to be more readily available. There needs to be more therapists who speak different languages besides English, not just English and Spanish, but also Asian languages, also not other different languages. Therapists who speak multiple languages, not just like 1 or 2 languages, and not even just beyond that, benefits for those therapists who have who can learn those languages and communicate with those families. So a lot of it is also understanding that advocating for Asian American and Asian therapists who understand that gap between those families and be able to communicate to those families that it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to be discriminated for.
Yeah, I really appreciate your point about encouraging and supporting also therapists who are learning or can provide care in different languages. And
yeah, for sure.
You said, Zoom is giving me a warning that we have 10 minutes left.
No, I see it. No worries. No worries.
Question list that just popped up a couple of seconds ago. But one of the next ones I was hoping to ask is just what's the best way for someone to support you if you're going through a challenging time?
I will answer this in twofold. The first one is, if in general, is listen and be empathetic and don't fix their problem. They don't want you to fix their problem. They want you to be with them and to understand that as long as you're being supportive, you're trying to be there for them and just be there with them. That's all they need. That's all they need. Even if they're going too hard, if they want to fix the problem, they'll ask you to fix the problem. For me personally, I prefer that if I'm going through a hard time, I want you to acknowledge and pay attention to my signs. Pay attention to my signs, ask me what you can do to help me feel loved and appreciated, and affirm me that everything is going to be okay. Because with OCD, with schizoaffective, I always feel like everything is going to go to hell. I'm going to die. So it's very important for me to feel like I feel loved and appreciated whenever I'm going through an episode.
I thank you so much for that answer. And I appreciate so much your point about not trying to always jump in and fix things. Because I think that's a human tendency. You know, we care about someone, we want them to feel better immediately, but trying to fix it definitely doesn't always help. And I was also wondering, just kind of what advice you would give to other people who are struggling with our mental health, and kind of a related question, but if you could go back in time, what advice or encouragement would you like to have given to yourself when you were younger?
Yeah, so I would, for anyone who's struggling with many mental illness, whether you're a kid, whether you're an adult, whether you're older than that, I would say you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not a monster. You're human, and your brains are sick. Your brain is going through misfirings. Your brain needs help. And it just so happens that what that manifests into is into behavior, and that behavior can hurt people around you, and that behavior is what people are scared about, but it's not your fault. As long as you are aware of that and you're making the effort to change that and to get help, that's all that matters. And I would say that life is worth living for. Suicide is definitely not the answer. I've tried, and it's not the answer. It is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I know people have different opinions about that. But as for me, what I needed to hear was that you can do this. Emotions are very, very strong things, especially when you're feeling suicidal, but they are temporary. Learn skills to ground yourself in the moment. Grounding is the number one thing that can help it. I don't think we have enough time to get into it, but if you need help going through a difficult time, look up grounding techniques on YouTube. Look up grounding techniques on therapy websites. They help you to stay in the moment, to help you process extremely difficult emotion without you hurting yourself or someone else. So yeah.
Thank you. And the last question I had is just what your experience with jiu-jitsu and judo has been like, and how that's helped your mental health as well.
Yeah, so it's been really good. It's been good because I've been able to meet people that relate. We had a gentleman on our team before I came to that gym. So I moved to a different city. And he committed suicide, and he was a brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
Sorry.
And so that gym, whenever I was sharing with them with my mental struggles, they sort of flocked to me. They're like, we want Johnny Judoka to like be here with us because we care about that kind of stuff. And so it's been tremendous, the amount of support I've been getting about my mental health. I can talk to guys about my mental health, guys that are super tough and great at jiu-jitsu and everything. And it's been a really great experience. Sometimes I still get anxious at jiu-jitsu. I still get overwhelmed. Sometimes I get anxious and I can't perform as well at jiu-jitsu, but I try to remind myself that it's okay. That happens, and I just keep coming back. And the most important, and I use it as an opportunity to overcome whatever. Jiu-jitsu is never about beating my opponent or beating my partner, submitting my partner. It's about overcoming whatever demons I had that I'm dealing with that day or that week or that month. So
it sounds like an awesome community that you found. And I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience. It's learned so much just from talking with you. And I'm so sorry about the internet connection going out halfway through.
No, it's fine. No, it happened
earlier today.
It happens.
It's been very smooth on the technical end, and then
yeah,
I guess. Yeah, thank you so much again. And